What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it's my team selection for Game Week 18. So I'm going to run you through how the team is looking, how I'm going to spend my 4 free transfers, when and how I'm going to get Isak in, thoughts on captaincy, and I'll quickly show you how I did in Game Week 17. So as always, if you enjoyed the video, give it a like, hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. And just a quick one, I'm recording this on the 23rd, but it's not going out until the 24th, just because of the Christmas period. That's the only way I can get this video sorted without just putting them all out in one go. So fingers crossed there's no major team news by the time this video goes live. Either way, hopefully it's helpful. Let's get into it. So let's start with how I did in Game Week 17, and unfortunately for me, the green arrow run has come to an end. So I was on 7 green arrows in a row, but this week I got a red arrow. But to be honest with you, given how things were looking before that Spurs-Liverpool game, I'm actually quite happy with how things ended up. So I think before that match, I'd had 8 players play and was on 18 points. My only return was a Gabriel assist. Bearing in mind that a lot of you watching this would have had 17 points from Isak alone, I was in a really bad position, and I'd gone from like 206k to 400,000 overall rank, so it really wasn't looking good. But then I had Trent got an assist, Solanke goal and assist, and then Salah with 4 attacking returns for 42 points as my captain. And that pushed me back up to 269k. So although it was a red arrow, I really was fearing the worst after the Isak hat-trick, the Arsenal clean sheet wipeout. In the end, it wasn't all that bad. Could have been better, obviously. Like Fernandes had a few chances to get returns and stuff like that. And I benched Rodgers for his 14 points. But I don't know, I'm kind of happy with that red arrow given how the game week played out. And I look back at the decision-making for Game Week 17. I was always leaning towards rolling the transfer. I did briefly think about Saliba to Castagna for that Southampton game as a big differential at 4.2 million. Would have allowed me to do Solanke to Isak. And I would have been up like 10, 15 points. So obviously, if I could go back in time, I'd make the move. But if you told me going into Game Week 17 that Solanke would get 2 attacking returns, there's no way I would have even considered it with Saliba having Ipswich in Game Week 18. So I think the outcome was bad, and maybe most of you would have done that move, that's fair enough. But I actually don't mind that I did it all that much. And also, now we've seen Game Week 17, Raul Jimenez, for example, getting benched against Southampton. I'd much rather find a way to upgrade him to Isak than get rid of Solanke. So I'm quite glad I didn't make the move, even though I would have been up on points. I think it was the right decision for my team. In terms of benching Rodgers, I was never going to play him ahead of Raul Jimenez, so I don't mind that too much. Some people on the deadline stream said I should have played him ahead of Solanke, but again, they both got 2 attacking returns. So I think the decision-making was okay. Raul Jimenez in particular has been an absolute disaster. I bought him in Game Week 10 instead of Cunha. Cunha, I don't even want to know how many points he's had. In terms of expected goals, I think they've been quite similar, but Cunha has absolutely smashed the points. And of course, Raul Jimenez was cheaper, so maybe that's allowed me to make other moves. But honestly, I'd much rather have those points. And now I can't even rely on him for start. So he's been an absolute disaster for me. Palmer blank, Fernandes blank, Mbeumo blank, triple clean sheet wipeout, João Pedro blank again. It wasn't pretty, but like I said, it could have been worse. And I think things are looking pretty good for Game Week 18. So let's talk about that. So because I didn't make a move last week, I've got 4 free transfers for Game Week 18 and 0.3 million in the bank. So over the next couple of game weeks, I've got a bit of flexibility in terms of how I might want to move players around. For this week specifically, my defence could not be any more straightforward. I've got Raya, Gabriel, Saliba triple up against Ipswich at home. And I know there's going to be at least one person out there that tells me that 1 goal from Ipswich will wipe out that clean sheet. It's too risky, etc. But also it's a huge differential if it comes in. And this will probably be the last game week with that triple up. I'm almost certainly going to sell Saliba. I just don't want to do it until Game Week 19. And then my third defender in the back 3 is Trent Alexander-Arnold with Leicester at home. There is maybe some doubts about whether or not he starts, but he's already in my squad, so I'm definitely going to play him. The upside is massive, and it's a game on Thursday, 5 days after they played Spurs. So the only real worry, I think, is an early sub because they've got West Ham 3 days later. But either way, he's going to play. So the only transfer I'm remotely considering this week is Pinnock up to Munoz for Crystal Palace. And not because I want to put Munoz in the 11, it's just to give me a bit of cover in case one of my defenders is benched, or possibly even, more than one of my attackers. Because there is a bit of fixture congestion for some teams. Well, all teams are obviously having to play with quick turnaround, some more than others. And we might have benchings that right now we're not predicting. And with 4 transfers, even if I do Pigott to Munoz, I've still got 4 next week if I don't make any others. And from next week, I definitely want him, right? Southampton at home, that is a brilliant fixture. Leicester away in 21 is good. Happy to play him against West Ham, Brentford, etc. The fixture run is just good for a long time, and he's an attacking right wing-back for 4.7 million, who any kind of return against Bournemouth will go up in price very quickly ahead of that Southampton game. So that's about it. I might do Pinnock to Munoz just for bench cover, but there's no way I'm selling Raya, Gabriel, Saliba, Trent Alexander-Arnold, or at least I don't think I am. So my midfield is also pretty straightforward this week. Cole Palmer has blanked twice in a row now against Brentford at home and Everton away, but I've given no consideration whatsoever to selling him, and he might even be my captain next week against Ipswich away. Given how inevitable Salah feels right now in terms of attacking returns, I might just captain him against West Ham away next week, but Palmer will be a consideration, so he stays. Bruno Fernandes, yes, he blanked against Bournemouth, but he has been pretty consistent recently and was a little bit unlucky not to walk away with a return in that game. And I think with the fixtures Man United have got coming up, he's another player that I'm just not particularly concerned about. The only fixture that's not great is the Liverpool one. So Wolves away this week, then Newcastle at home, then that Liverpool away game, but then it's Southampton at home, Brighton at home, Fulham away, Palace at home, Spurs away, Everton away, Ipswich at home. It's a really good run, and I've just got no interest in selling him. There is a small part of me, like maybe 1%, that has thought about selling him to Amad Diallo to free up 3 million, which would make it very easy to get Isak in. But I just don't want to give Fernandes up. A nailed-on player on penalties, often getting most of his minutes in that front three with decent fixtures. And also with the Saka injury, there's one less thing to worry about in terms of midfield spots. So Fernandes is a very easy keep for me. In Burmo, I would like to keep for the Southampton game in game week 20, but I'm not sure that's going to happen now. I think Mbeumo is going to get sold, but I think it might be next week before Arsenal at home. Brighton away is not an amazing fixture, and I'm not necessarily looking to hold him specifically for that game, but I also don't need to downgrade him this week unless I'm going to move for Isak, and I'm going to talk about that later, but I don't think that's something I'm going to do. So Mbeumo might go to Semenyo or Sarr as a cheap option to free up funds for me, but I don't think I need to do it this week. Like Semenyo has got Crystal Palace at home, not bad. Sarr's got Bournemouth away, not bad either. I don't think either of them are better than Mbeumo for 1 week only. That's it, basically. They might be better over the next 4 to 6 weeks, given Brentford's fixtures and the fact you free up money. But as a 1 game week shootout, I'm more than happy keeping Mbeumo. I said the same thing before Mbeumo played Newcastle, I think. That I was happy to hold him for 1 week only versus like a Bowen, Gordon, Matoma, etc. And in the end, because of other stuff happening, I just kept hold of him for the Chelsea game. And it's the same situation this week. So I'm not tied to having Mbeumo in my team forever. I'd like him for Southampton. I don't think it's going to happen. But for this week, he's probably staying. It gives me another week's worth of information to decide on which cheap midfielder to bring in. And then Salah, I mean, what do I need to say about Salah? He may well break his 303-point record. Like, if he does leave Liverpool at the end of the season, which I don't think he will, but if he does, what an amazing bookend for FPL. 303 points record in his first season, then he breaks it at the end. It would be pretty cool from an FPL perspective. He's definitely my captain. No consideration for any other player. It's on him. It's Leicester at home. It's easy. So my 3 forwards are less straightforward than my midfielders and defenders, but I think given what I've seen over the last couple of game weeks, the plan to deal with them has become somewhat simple. So let's talk about that. With João Pedro, it has not been great since I brought him back into my squad. It's like 1 assist in the last 5 matches. Not ideal, but I love the fact that he is continuing to start and continuing to get good minutes. I think a player costing less than 6 million on penalties with the potential he has, it's just not worth thinking about getting rid of him. So he is probably going to stay. And if we look at recent minutes, Back-to-back 90s against West Ham and Palace, 70 before that, then it was 79, 71, 63. So pretty decent. Could he get benched over Christmas? Possibly. But I think with the injuries they've got to the likes of Welbeck, it's not that likely. I think it's more a chance that he would come off early in a couple of the games instead. So I'm going to keep hold of him, even though the returns have been poor. Solanke, again, the bonus thing is frustrating, but he has returned quite consistently. And I think given that he was only 7.5 million, I'm pretty tempted just to hold on to him, to be honest with you. Like, he's absolutely nailed on. The minutes are almost always good. He has got, 6 goals, 5 assists, so 11 attacking returns in 14 starts. That ain't bad. I think that has gone under the radar. The points could just be a bit better if he could pick up bonus. But he's going to continue to start. And I like the fixtures that Spurs have. Forest away, not easy, but then you've got back-to-back home games. Arsenal away in 21, not easy whatsoever, and probably neither is Everton away in 22. So you could argue that 3 of the next 5 are actually a bit difficult, but Solanke will play them all, and he'll get good minutes, and then he's got Leicester, Brentford, Man United, Ipswich. I think long-term he looks decent, and you could definitely argue that Isak is better than Solanke, and I would not debate you whatsoever. I would say absolutely Isak is better, but I've also got Raul Jimenez, and he is becoming a problem. And essentially, when I say the plan is simple, I think it's basically find the money to do Raul Jimenez to Isak and leave Solanke in. That's the front line that I want to get over the next couple of game weeks. Solanke, João Pedro, and Isak. I still won't have Jackson, and by the time I make moves for Isak, Jackson will probably have got through without a suspension. But for me, I think Solanke is cheaper than Jackson, so I like that. Isak is better than Jackson, and João Pedro is much cheaper, so I'm going to ignore him. So that's what I'm going to aim to do, Raul Jimenez to Isak. Now, that's going to take me 3 transfers. 1, to bring in Isak, and 2, to fund it, because it's a lot of money to spend. It's over 3 million, and I've only got 0.3 in the bank. It's not going to be this week, I don't think. I could do it, but it would involve selling Saliba before Ipswich at home, and it would involve selling in Burma before Brighton away to a cheap midfielder that I'm not 100% sure who I want to go for. So I think I'm going to go 1 more week without Isak. It's not great because he's got Aston Villa at home, and if I buy the week after, it would be before Man United away. But the long-term fixtures are good that I don't mind bringing him in for that game, and I just can't guarantee when Raul Jimenez is going to play now. The fact that he got benched against Southampton and Menez didn't do anything means Raul Jimenez will probably start against Chelsea. But if that happens, what I would then suspect would happen afterwards is then he could get benched against Bournemouth because it's only 3 days later. Now, it might be, for any of you with Raul Jimenez that don't want to sell, that he plays Chelsea, he's benched against Bournemouth and he plays Ipswich. That might be quite nice. But even if he does, the minutes are going to be limited. So he's still potentially great value, possibly on penalties, less than 6 million, could play that Ipswich game. But I'm not sure how much I can rely on him moving forward. So I want to get to Isak. I just don't want to do it this week. And I might not even play Raul Jimenez. I may well just play Rodgers instead in a 3-5-2 against Newcastle away. So I think some people will look at it saying, just make 3 transfers. You've got 4, just get Isak. But I think playing Rodgers and just leaving Raul Jimenez for 1 more week and not selling Saliba makes more sense. So just to talk through... and by the way, I checked my... team on the hub AI transfers, that also said we recommend no transfers, so it's nice to get that confirmation bias. And if you want to check that out for yourself, for your own team, link in the description below, etc. But going back to my team, if I want to make the move, basically, let me just make this a bit smaller so it's easier for me to do. It's the annoying thing about recording on a laptop when you're not on your usual space. So Raul Jimenez to Isak, I need to find 3 million basically. So Saliba to Munoz would be one of the moves, and I'll come back to Pinnock in a second. And then I need to free up 1.6 million more, which would maybe I could... No, it's going to be in Burmo. I think I want to keep Fernandes, Salah, Palmer. I like Gabriel still. Raya wouldn't give me enough money, and I don't want to sell Trent, so it has to be in Burmo, and I'd have 5.7 to spend. So right now, that's SAR money. The one issue I might have is price changes. Isak will go up before the deadline, so if I don't buy him this week, he's going to cost me 9 million. Then I need to free up even more money, but that is Pinnock to Castagna or Anderson at Fulham. So I think that's the 4 moves that I want to make over the next 2 game weeks, probably. Raul Jimenez to Isak, Mbeumo to someone like Sarr, Semenyo, or even if I get stuck for money, Ahmad or Enzo, Saliba to Munoz, and Pinnock to Castagna or Anderson. They're the 4 players I want to take out, the 4 players that I want to bring in, and I've got the moves to do it. I just don't want to make them all this week because I don't even have to play Jimenez. Saliba's got Ipswich and Mbeumo is fine. So that's why I'm not going for Isak. And the guy's good, but he's not that essential, in my opinion. I know some of you, maybe all of you, will disagree with that. So that's the 4 moves that I think I'm going to make. I just don't think it will be this week. And by the way, the order might be slightly weird. So I might do Pinnock to Munoz this week and then Saliba to Castagna or Anderson next week, if that makes sense. So as it stands, I'm either going to roll to 5 or do Pinnock to Munoz for bench cover and then look to get Isak in next week. Another week's worth of information. Maybe another player will get injured or something like that and I'll have an easier route to Isak. And I know it's easy to say the team looks fine, just use the transfers, but look what's happened to Saka owners. Like, if I had Saka right now, I'd be in a great position to deal with it, right? 4 free transfers. I could spread that money around super quickly. Maybe someone else gets injured next week in my team, and it makes the route to Isak even simpler. So, yeah, it's roll or Pinnock to Munoz. I think the third option is to get Isak this week, but I don't see it happening. If you've enjoyed that video, make sure to give it a like, hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Rate 5 stars if you listen on podcast. And I should be back tomorrow for one more video ahead of the deadline. Final thoughts. Fingers crossed I can get that out. If I can, I'll catch you then.